Hello, I am Patrick Simpson, and this video is to discuss my dissertation topic. And the topic that I have chosen is to look at the effectiveness of strategic bombers in a tactical role, and to look specifically at the air war in Europe during World War II. My interest in the air war begins with my father, who was a B-24 navigator. And through his stories, I became more interested in his experiences during the war. When I went off to grad school, my master's thesis actually is on the air war. More specifically, it was to look at the effectiveness of strategic bombers through the ability of a single bomb group, which happened to be my father's. Through my father, I was able to interview several men who served as part of his as bomb group, and which also led me to conduct not only my own interviews but to conduct some oral history interviews for the University of North Texas. This, of course, just continued my interest into the air war and to continue to learn more, to research more. So when it came to my dissertation topic, I was wanting to do something related to the air war. And as I was continuing to research, trying to find something, that would be maybe something fairly new, is that I came across the lack thereof. Um, the examination of strategic bombers in a tactical role. I did find a few, couple of Air Force studies that were written back in the early 50s. And I found some, studies that look at specific missions or specific campaigns, such as the invasion of Normandy or the, bombing of V-1 and V-2 rocket sites. But I did not find any current studies on the use of strategic bombers in a tactical role. And so this just kind of interested that much more. Why were strategic bombers used in such a manner that they were not really designed for, nor were the crews trained for? And why was it decided to divert, the heavy bombers from the strategic bombing of the industries of Germany? And why would you just divert them to handle targets that really they weren't qualified to handle? And so that's kind of what I'm getting into, is to answer these questions of why do you divert your strategic bombers into a tactical role? Who made this decision? What arguments were made against this idea, and which ones, of course, were made for it? Ultimately, what targets were selected? Why were they selected? Did this bombing of tactical targets with strategic bombers really make a difference? To look at the effectiveness of the different campaigns, to look at the effectiveness of specific missions, to understand, did this, help with the war effort? Did it may have shortened the war, or did it have the, opposite effect? Did it actually prolong the war in some way because you diverted the bombers from their original purpose? And even look at, was the use of these bombers, was it worth the cost of both aircraft and men? Because a lot of planes are going to be lost, a lot of men are going to be lost by doing this. So the purpose of this is to try to add to the historiography of a topic that just doesn't seem to have received much, at least overall, examination. and to tell the story of course, of these men who were, sent to bomb these targets and the impact it may have had on them, but also to examine the if any lessons were learned. I mean, things are going to be problems. I mean, was, anything done to help with the effectiveness? Were the aircraft modified in some way? Was additional training given to the man to, move away from strategic targets to more tactical targets? And what issues were encountered and what lessons were learned, and how did this carry on beyond World War II? Were the lessons here, did they have an impact on future wars? So that's kind of the purpose of looking at this. And just, again, to fill in um, some additional historiography. And how I kind of plan on doing this is I want to, of course, start with the strategic bombing doctrine, why it was created, how it was created, the men, that were responsible for creating it, and then how it was implemented how it was implemented during the war, and, what modifications were done to it. And what, again, decisions were being made to move some of these bombers away from the strategic bombing doctrine into this more tactical role. Once I start with that general background and whatnot, then to start getting more specific beyond then, to start looking more specifically at the reasons why these decisions were made, and then how these bombers were implemented into this tactical role. And then to get specific about the campaigns like the Normandy invasion, like the V1 and V2 rocket sites, and get specific with the campaigns, get specific with the missions, and to start looking at the effectiveness of all of this. I mean, were certain missions, of course, more effective than others? Were certain targets that bombed, was there more effectiveness in hitting those targets as opposed to others? And just, what were the overall effectiveness of the use of strategic bombers in a tactical role? And then, just, did it really make an impact into the overall war effort? And to do this, of course, I'm going to rely a great deal on, of course, already studies that have been published, on the Air Force studies that have been published, but also very much look at the writings of, of course, the leadership, look at their memoirs, their journals, their documents, their letters, but also to look at, memoirs and stories that were written by the men who went on these missions, and have their take on the effectiveness and whether or not this was really a worthwhile thing to do. And of course, to start looking at my old interviews, to look at other oral history interviews, which I know many of them are down at the University of North Texas, and I know that the National Archives, and there's veterans projects that have a number of interviews as well. But as for finding primary documents, um, bomb group documents, 8th Air Force documents, because I'm going to concentrate more on the 8th Air Force, because they're the Air Force that was mainly responsible for carrying out the strategic bombing of Germany. And a lot of that information can be found through the National Archives. But I can also find information um, through the Air Force. The Air Force University in Montgomery, Alabama, has a lot of these documents, especially documents of the different units that would have been involved in this. The 8th Air Force Museum in Savannah, Georgia, also has a fairly good archive of letters, good archives of books that were written by men that had been part of the Eighth Air Force. And there are other areas and other libraries, and even presidential libraries, um, that things can be found as well. Other information, other documents, and on artifacts. But really, that is what I'm looking at, is to look specifically at the use of strategic bombers in a tactical role, and truly just how effective it really was on the overall um, conduct of the war effort. Did it make a difference? Or did it not make a difference? Did it shorten the war? Did it make the war last longer? It just didn't have any real effect overall. But I want to tell the story not just from the big picture, but hopefully I want to be able to tell the story again by from the perspective of the men who did go on these missions, and how that how do they kind of feel about that, and did it, in their opinion, did it make a difference? But that is the purpose. That is my thought. So I appreciate you, for everybody, for taking their time in watching this video, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you very much.